nice of the princess to invite us over for a picnic, eh, Luigi? I hope she made lots of spaghetti. Luigi, look!
You humans have come to call me Smile Dog. And when you see my face, you better pass it along, or your very sanity will be ripped to shreds and your fleshy body will follow shortly. So spread the word about the Smile Dog.
Hey guys, Bleach here. Creepypastas are a very interesting internet phenomenon that shaped a large part of mine and many other people's childhoods. Scary stories of ghosts, otherworldly monsters, stalkers, serial killers, haunted video games, and even lost episodes of television. I still remember being a kid and telling all my friends and family about Squidward's sewer slide, and of course, how totally real it was. Me and my brother were not allowed internet access for a while after that. And creepypastas didn't just shape childhoods either. They helped to shape the culture of the internet as a whole. Virtually all future forms of horror popularized on the internet are heavily influenced either directly or indirectly by creepypasta. Analog horror, mascot horror, SCP, and various unfiction projects all owe a lot to the legacy of creepypasta. Many prominent creepypastas would also become heavily embedded in meme culture. But despite the heavy influence of creepypasta on the internet, many people, including myself, feel that many of the most popular creepypastas such as Slenderman, The Walton Files, Friday Night Funkin', Jeff the Killer, and many others are just really not that particularly good. The worst of the genre just seems to somehow find its way to the top of the public eye for some reason. So today, I scoured the internet to bring you the top 10 scariest creepypasta. Enjoy! Number 10. James the Killer. Written by James. Hello, my name is James Mercer. I've been following this so-called Jeff the Killer everyone is talking about. I live in the asylum where he is staying. I have heard all the videos on YouTube about him, and truthfully, it fascinates me how many idiots there are in this world. Jeff the Killer is no monster. He is simply your worst nightmare. But for me, he's my biggest idol. I long to be like him. I have never come face to face with him, but I would like to one day. Jeff is no fictional character made up by some random twisted fuck on a computer. Jeff is real and he can't be stopped. I have been labeled insane by my doctor, a psychopath or sociopath, or I've been diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. But the doctor has been taken care of. You want to know what I did to him, don't you? Well then, read this police report. Police report. Suspect, Jeffrey the Killer. Victim, Dr. Bill Wolf. All in this town know of Jeffrey the Killer, or Jeff for short. The murder seems as if it was his doing. The detective found who he was, but he is gone now. The suspect entrails have been dragged out of the victim's body and placed in a bucket by a nearby dumpster. There is blood written on the wall that says, "Looks like you can't send anyone to that mental institution now." More needs to be found, but by the multiple stab wounds and bruises indicate the doing of the so-called Jeff the Killer. More will be written when more evidence is found. I am now writing again, after a week since I had written last. I have now been face to face with Jeff the Killer. My reaction was not what he expected. He expected me to faint with terror, but instead, I greeted him and told him my name was James. He asked in a very confused voice, "Why aren't you afraid? Everyone is afraid of me." I replied, very calm with a smile and a slight laugh. "I love you. You're my idol. Why would I be afraid of you?" He asked, "You don't have what it takes to follow me. You don't have the thirst for murder that I do." I told him about the killing of my doctor and showed him the police report. He looked at me and punched me in the face and kicked me in the stomach.
This didn't hurt, and I didn't move much but a slight jump back to ease the push of the kick. I countered with a kick to the knee, and as he fell, a knee to the face. As blood ran down from his nose, he replied in a cheerful, almost excited voice. Maybe you do have what it takes to follow me, but first, you must hunt with me to see if you are worthy. I've written this, waiting for him to call my name to leave. If I don't mess up, I could meet Jeff the Killer's partner in murder.
James.
I hear a slight laughter. I better go. 4 weeks later. Let's just say the hunt went well. I am now his partner in murder. He called me James the Killer. I've got my skin bleached and a cut in the form of a bloody smile. And don't forget I burned off my eyelids. I have a black hoodie, and my eyes have been burnt to a shade of red and black. My favorite colors, blood and darkness. Blood is what is inside all of us, flowing through our bodies, and the ultimate nightmare fuel. Darkness is what you see when you go to sleep, and when you go to sleep, that's when we're under your bed, ready to slice your throat. That's when you begin screaming for your parents. What you don't know is that your parents have already been murdered and sliced open. They didn't do what we said and run. Instead, they tried to kill Jeff and I. Decapitation may have been the wrong thing to do, but we don't care. We don't feel remorse. We will find you. We will kill you. So go ahead and try to go to sleep.
Police report. Suspects, Jeff the Killer and James the Killer. Victims, unknown. Riley Blaine, unknown. 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 Adam Smith, James Mercer. We have found that Jeff may have a partner, James. I guess he thinks that he can be the only James because of his killing of James Mercer. Riley Blaine and Adam Smith were both parents, and all child suspects cannot be identified. James Mercer was 21 years old. I oddly believe that he may be James the Killer, but that is only a theory.
They think I'm dead, except for the writer of the report. Good thing he's dead now too. Jeff and I didn't exactly appreciate his slip of the tongue. Jeff and I are unstoppable. We cannot be beaten. And we will not rest until we are both dead. This leads me to say that what you will hear tonight when you lie in bed, getting ready for bed, you will hear two voices say, "Go to sleep." Number 9. Doofenshmirtz kills everyone. Author unknown. The episode started with the classic Phineas and Ferb intro. Then, after the intro was over, and it was at the Phineas and Ferb logo, Candace didn't show up and it was frozen. Then it cut to the episode, but instead of starting in Phineas and Ferb's house, it starts with showing Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated, as well as that jingle. Then it cut to Doofenshmirtz next to a long box.
This evil device will bring people's lives to an end!
He said with such laughter. Then another box falls from the sky, and Doofenshmirtz decides to open it and finds a platypus.
A platypus?
Doofenshmirtz says. Then the platypus puts on a hat.
Parry the platypus!
Doofenshmirtz says after realizing. Then Doofenshmirtz dashes to the long box, opens it, and inside was an AK-47. Hold on, what? I yelled after seeing it. Then Doofenshmirtz shoots Perry the platypus. It cuts to Phineas and Ferb's house before the death happens, although you can hear the shot. At Phineas and Ferb's house, Phineas and Ferb are sitting in the backyard under a tree. Say, you want to build a water slide? Phineas says to Ferb. Ferb doesn't answer, but he nods his head, meaning yes. Then, Candace comes out into the backyard. I'm tired of you making inventions, so I'm gonna install these cameras I found. Candace roared at them. Then, Candace went and installed the cameras all around the backyard. Phineas and Ferb then secretly go back into the house while Candace wasn't looking, which was perfect for them since all of a sudden a portal appears and Doofenshmirtz with the AK-47 in his hand comes out. Doofenshmirtz says. Candace then sees Doofenshmirtz and he shoots her, but it cuts away right as the shot happens. Then after 6 seconds, a thud can be heard, and then it cuts to Phineas and Ferb in their bedroom. Where did Perry go? Phineas says to Ferb. Ferb doesn't answer. Then about 2 seconds later, the bedroom door opens and Isabella shows up. What you doing? Isabel says, like usual. Sitting in our bedroom since Candace, Phineas tried to say before Isabella cut him off. Candace is dead, she said. Then before Phineas could say anything, Isabella escorted Phineas and Ferb to the body of Candace. A pool of blood surrounded her body, and also the backyard door was open. Most likely because Isabella left it open. However, Doofenshmirtz then shows up right at the backyard door after it cut away from Candace's body again.
You shouldn't have showed up,
he said, smirking. Phineas dashed away immediately, and so did Isabella the moment she caught a glance at Doofenshmirtz's weapon. Ferb stood there, doing nothing, and then he was shot, and it cut away as the shot was made. Then it cut to the mother in the kitchen, cooking something with headphones on, meaning she doesn't know what's going on. At this point, the climax would begin, and Doofenshmirtz would enter the house through the backyard door. Doofenshmirtz said, trying to grabbing the mother's attention. It didn't work out since she was wearing headphones, so he just shot her without her knowing. This time though, it did show the mother's death, and also her head fell into a boiling pot and began a fire in the house. Then it cut to Phineas and Ferb's bedroom with Phineas and Isabella sitting together. Then, the bedroom door would open, since it was left unlocked. Doofenshmirtz would then yell,
time to die!
Then he tried shooting at both of them. Phineas would get shot. However, then when Doofenshmirtz tried to kill Isabella, the bullet just missed and actually turned into a boomerang and hit Doofenshmirtz. He died almost instantly and was knocked onto the ground. Isabella was left numb, unable to move after what she witnessed. Then, the episode ended and the credits started rolling. The end credit scene showed Isabella slowly leaving the backyard of the house with her head down. The last shot showed her crying, probably because of what she just witnessed. So much death. What in the world was that? I yelled with rage, and after I yelled that statement, I would kind of punch my TV and break it. Now I have to buy a new TV. Number 8. Caillou, Mommy's Secret. Author, unknown. If you watched PBS Kids at some point in the 2000s, there is a chance that you have watched or at least heard of Caillou. The show's main protagonist is a 4-year-old bald-headed boy named Caillou, and it details his everyday life with his family and friends. But there is something very strange with one of Caillou's family members. That character I am referring to would be his younger sister Rosie. What is strange about Rosie, you may ask? Well, her hair color is red, while the hair color of both her parents Doris and Boris are brown. Do you find that odd? Suspicious maybe? If you're wondering might that be, well, after the experience I just had prior to writing this, there may be an answer being hidden away. The evidence comes from an unlisted episode of the series that somehow made its way to the Pirate Bay. The file's title went under the name of Caillou, Mommy's Secret, unofficial episode. I clicked the download button out of curiosity and opened up the AVI file. The title card read, Mommy's Secret, which shows Caillou's mother hugging a man with the same hair color as Rosie. He had a yellow jacket with a red shirt under the unzipped jacket, blue jeans, and black shoes. The episode started off with a view of Caillou's house as the grandmother narrator states, It was just a regular Monday morning at Caillou's house. Caillou was just about ready to head to preschool. Doris is then seen in the kitchen as she yelled for Caillou to come down. Caillou came down ready to go. She gave Caillou his lunch and they drove off. She then dropped off Caillou at his preschool, telling him, Have a good day at preschool, Caillou. Just before she got back in her car, her cell phone rang. She answered it. The call went like this. Oh, Philip, how are you doing? That's great to hear. When will you be over? Noon? Good, I'll be home around that time. Goodbye. As far as I could remember, there had been no character on the show by the name of Philip. The scene then cuts to home where Doris was making herself lunch. Her husband Boris was at work. A knock on the door is heard and she went to check on who was there. It was the same guy from the title card. She welcomed the man who was revealed to be Philip and hugged him. Philip then asks Doris, Well, ready to do it? Doris responded with a yes as they made their way upstairs. I didn't know what the two were going to do until they made their way to the upstairs bedroom. That is when it showed Philip taking off his jacket and shirt. At that moment, I knew they were going to have an affair while Boris and Caillou were away. The scene then showed Boris getting home early. As he entered the living room, however, he heard a faint moaning sound coming from upstairs. A suspicious look creeped across Boris's face, and he went up to the bedroom. When he entered, his expression changed from suspicion to that of a mixture of shock and disgust. There he saw his wife and Philip doing it under the covers. Boris's expression changed again, this time to that of anger. He then ran and leaped onto the bed where he kicked Philip, causing him to fall off the bed. Philip hit the ground quite hard and his nose even bled a bit. An angry Boris pointed at Philip, demanding his name and what he was doing with his wife. Philip then got himself back up, not showing his naked body of course, and told Boris he was cucking him out. When he said that, I felt myself starting to cry. And then cut to Rosie, playing with some toys when she heard her dad and Philip arguing a few rooms down the hall. Confused, she left her room and went to her parents' bedroom to see what was going on. She opened the door and saw her dad and a man she didn't know arguing. They both heard the door and looked down at Rosie. Philip then smirked and told Boris, "You see that so-called daughter of yours? Well, guess what? I'm the daddy. Does the hair color not prove so? You're pathetic." Boris then looked at his wife and asked her, "Is he right? Is he Rosie's real father?" Doris, who was still covered under the sheets and looking panicked, sighed and reluctantly responded, "Yes, I've been banging with him since Caillou was 1 year old." Philip, who had dressed himself back up at this point, tried to escape, but Boris grabbed him by his shirt's collar and threatened Philip with, "Listen, if I ever see you near this property again, it'll be the last thing you will ever do. Understand? Now get out!" Philip then ran out of the house. Boris looked at his wife, who had remained still in the bed. He stated, "You know, Doris, I considered giving you a second chance for a moment, but after realizing you've been banging with another man for the past 3 years, you've gone at least 1,000,000 steps too far. I'm calling for a divorce lawyer." The scene then cut to the house at night. The narrator stated, "It had been weeks since Caillou's mommy and daddy had their divorce, and daddy felt that Caillou needed a new mommy to replace his original one. Caillou would be meeting daddy's new girlfriend tonight, and he was very excited." Boris was in the living room talking to Caillou. He told him, "Well, Caillou, after Mom and Rosie have left, we are having a new member in this house. My new girlfriend, Ginny. Don't worry, she's a very nice lady and she gets along very well with children." A knock was then heard. Boris excitedly stated, "Oh look, she's here!" He opened the door to Ginny, a somewhat sexy blonde-haired girl with pretty big cleavage, a green fitness tank top, and blue exercise pants. She hugged Caillou and then went to hug Boris. The horrifying thing about this part was what Ginny referred to her new boyfriend as, Sugar Daddy, while Boris referred to her as Sugar Baby. Caillou then asked Ginny if she wanted to see his toys. She said yes, and they made their way to the playroom where Caillou showed Ginny his toys. The shot then cuts to a window outside. Night had already fallen. Outside was Doris with Rosie. Doris glared at Caillou and Ginny playing with toys from the outside. She then mutters the words, "Someday, someday, someday. I'll get you, Boris. I will get Caillou back. Just you wait." The episode ended from there as it went to the credits. After finishing the episode, difficult questions filled my mind. Had Doris really been that dissatisfied with her husband to the point of cheating on him just to get sex? How did Boris not come to the earlier suspicion of Rosie's hair color? There are many questions about this I feel I'll never get an answer to. Number 7. Five Nights at Freddy's: The Last Day. Author unknown. I'm your unusual fanboy. I like games that are a big fad. And right now, the biggest fad that is happening on the internet is a game called Five Nights at Freddy's. I love Five Nights at Freddy's. It is a scary and fun game. I also own all the games on Steam, and I cannot wait for FNAF World coming out in 2016. But let's cut to the chase. I was looking at Scott's website, and I was refreshing the hell out of it because I couldn't wait for the Halloween update. And then I finally got something. It was not a picture, it was a link. And it said, and I quote, "Hi guys, it's me, Scott. And I've just finished a surprise game for all of you guys, and I cannot wait to show you. So just click this link." I thought that was cool, but why so many K's after link? But I did not care and clicked the link. And when I got there, it was not at Steam. It was at a red screen with just a download button in the middle. And I thought to myself, man, Scott is really low budget now. But I clicked the link and it said, FNAF, The Last Day.exe. That sounded like a really cool title, and I cannot wait to see what the games was like. And then the game started. Now the first thing I noticed is that the music was a bit too depressing, and it sounded like sad music you will hear at a church or a funeral. And Freddy on the title screen looked kind of depressing too.
His eyes were dark and blood was coming out. He was broken and scrapped, and he had lots of his endoskeleton showing. I minimized the game and I looked up this game, but I found nothing, so I must have been one of the first people to play this. Anyways, I clicked play, and it started at night 661, which I found kinda strange, but anyways, I found myself in an office, and there was blood and gore all over the office, and that startled me when I saw it, but I said to myself, it's just a horror game, it's not real. And then the phone started ringing in the game, and then phone guy started to talk and said, hello? Hello? You will die, and I will murder you. I will cut your head and bury your limbs, and you will be dead. Good night. I was scared a bit, but then it struck 6 a.m. already. That was strange, I thought. But then the game shut off and it turned back on and it was on night 666. And once that happened, there was more blood and guts everywhere in the office and I puked, and I'm not kidding. And when the phone call started, it was just the garbled speech from night 5 from the first game, except it was deeper and more scary sounding. And there's Balloon Boy and Mangle in the office, and that scared me so much. I was so scared that I broke the PC and cracked it, but it was still on, and I broke it and shattered it into a bunch of pieces. And then I walked downstairs and I slept for a little while, and then I came back upstairs and the PC was fixed. And I was all like, what the fuck? And there was a note that said,
Keep on playing, you bastard.
from Satan. I needed to walk around, but then I fell down the stairs and died. And that was the last anyone ever heard of me. The end.
Number 6. Southpark.avi. Written by PeridotAmethyst.
One day, I was on my $2,000 gaming PC, watching gay furry porn, when suddenly, I got an ad for a bizarre South Park episode. The ad was Randy spreading his hairy cheeks. I hit the jackpot. You know I clicked on it. It then took me to a website called slutpark.com, filled with many vile videos. Yummy. One of them had a thumbnail with the same image as the ad, so I clicked it harder than the first plane hit the Twin Towers. The video started with a disclaimer that apparently this was a never-before-seen episode that was too explicit for television. The episode started with Randy in his room. He was slowly taking his clothes off. Once he took everything but his underwear off, it then cut to PC principal getting fucking died with a knife by Sonic.exe. Oh shit, that was scary, and turned me off. Hopefully Comedy Central will sue whoever made this into poverty. The fuckers behind knew many others like me find Randy really hot and would fall for this, but it's not my fault. And after that, the episode cut to Stan at a dinner table. He heard loud moaning noises. It then revealed that it was Randy jacking off to a photo of me IRL. That's when I realized I had a chance. I used my #Y/in powers to go through my screen and find Randy. Randy kissed me on the lips. His wife then walked in. She was more shocked than when I found out Chris Chan just got bailed out of prison. Randy, how could you? She screamed. Oh, Y/in is hot and sexy and I don't love you anymore. Randy exclaimed. Randy was right, and packed his bags and bought us a condo on the beach, and we have 2 cats, no, a hamster, and we got married. That's really it. I don't know what else to say.
Number 5. Chuck E. Cheese, The Shocking Truth. Written by Schizima.
I'm a huge Chuck E. Cheese fanatic. I even used to work there. I still have the Pasquale outfit in the closet, along with several plastic spiders, a Coca-Cola souvenir cup, and a big old bucket of plastic pasta that cost 6,000 tickets. But there's something you should know. I worked at the place from 1995 to 1997, when things took a strange turn for the worse. Indeed, the cheese, as we call it in the biz, is not all it's cracked up to be. Eggs. Listen carefully, because I don't want to frighten you. I know you're easily scared, and this story is easily going to make you lose your sanity because of how much has been covered up by the Chuck E. Cheese Corporation over the years. I first knew something was off when I saw the training video. The man never took the Pasquale outfit off, and they never broke character. It was really weird. A character named P. Farnabas Q. Cheese was seen in the background, but he never interacted, nor were they ever included in the original cheese lineup. Later, Munch, the large purple what's-it, would replace P-Farnabis, who I believe was deemed too weird for American audiences. Chuck E. Cheese originated in Canada. Now, you probably don't know that Chuck E. Cheese was created by the guy who invented Pong. This is important, but I want you to remember that for now. Later on, you'll understand everything. The training video was really long. They showed us how to prepare dough, make the sauce, and put the piping hot pizza in the oven. And when you cook the pizza, be sure to always use a glove. Pasquale winked a sinister wink. I was getting a strange feeling. Otherwise, this may happen, and the Chuck won't like it. The Pasquale costume reaches into the piping hot oven with his bare hands and takes out the pizza, screaming violently.
Oh my fucking god!
He yelled, and there was a weird CG laugh stapled on. He had visible blisters all over his hands. His red and burning hands were not puppet hands. They were human hands. I can't cook pizza this way, he screams. My arch is ruined. He takes out a knife and begins to slice his own arm off at the wrist. The training tape immediately cut to a bunch of kids playing in a ball pit, as if that never happened. Then Chucky began to talk. Remember, don't play on the machines until after dark. What the hell did that mean? Oh, you can play bouncy gyrocopter or horse ride for a quarter, but nothing's gonna cure that deep depression when you're too old to take a ride anymore. This was too weird for me. But they made us sign a non-disclosure agreement before we became a part of the Chuck E. Cheese family. That was the weirdest part. They had me take a blood test, not a drug test like a normal employer, but a blood test. I was thinking about that in the last 2 minutes of the training video when Chuck yelled, "Cheesy blood! Cheesy blood!" He spurted a blood packet all over the pizza and walked out of the kitchen with it. Remember, don't open the machine. When you take the tickets out, do not open the machine. Chucky sounded sterner now. More stern than he had ever been. Well, I was convinced. As soon as this goddamn training tape was over, I was gonna go open a machine. Why wouldn't they let us open the machines? How are we supposed to get the tokens out? Chucky had red eyes, smiled, and his teeth grew incredibly sharp. Violently sharp. Not even carnivorous, but like a trash compactor. His head turned a little and I noticed that the Chuck E. Cheese logo, which usually contained a little rat giving a thumbs up, had a small Masonic symbol on it. I didn't know Chucky was a Mason. Then the manager shut the tape off. That's enough for today. What was that about? I said. Didn't you like the video? They do things a bit different in Canada. Different humor style, but don't worry, the Cheese Foundation is all American. You're putting blood on the pizza, I yelled. Blood on the pizza? That's a violation of so many laws I can't even count. Tell you what, come back tomorrow and we'll sort this all out. He quickly pulled the training video out and put it in a black slipcase that was unmarked. Come back tomorrow? I asked. Yes, come back tomorrow. All will be explained during the big quarter cheese chunk training hour. He physically pushed me out of the front door, forcing me to leave my big gulp and orthopedic back pillow behind. That night, I returned to the Charles Entertainment Cheese. I jimmied the lock using a small knife, some fish bones, and a rubber hammer, and I climbed through the window. I took out my screwdriver and began to unscrew a machine. The chicken machine. My favorite game. I unscrewed the 4 main screws and popped the top off. What I saw next shocked me to the very core of my being, and I will never forget it. To my horror, there was a dead Chuck E. Cheese employee inside. Wait. Not dead. Moving? The lips were sewn shut and it had a horrified expression on its face. It was hooked up to an IV that fed him intravenous pieces of food that were attached to the ink on the ticket pieces. What in God's name? The words, Ut in honestis sacrifice caso, were burned into his chest. I later found out that it meant an honorable sacrifice to the cheese. The other machines started to knock and bang. There were people in all of them, stuffed inside. I didn't have a chance to save him because something happened next that truly terrified me. The characters, they were human. It wasn't just a suit, that was their skin. A furry rat man walked out with a crooked nose and hobbly warped teeth. He looked sinister and his cap wasn't even well-fitting. The real Chuck E. Cheese had arrived, and he was covered in ugly, patchy fur for his oblong kneecaps and bulging dough chunk gut. Pasquale, too, the Italian man, leered at me, angrily holding a ladle covered in what I hoped to God was just pasta sauce. He leered at me with a kind of look.
Piece of the cheese,
He said.
Piece of the cheese!
They began to corner me and I was hit with the ladle square on the head. The police arrived. I had tripped the wire. Good. I was just about to blow the cover on this whole fucking thing. Thank God, officer, they're a real monster. Oh my God. The officer, the cop, was wearing a Chuck E. Cheese costume. He pulled the gun on me and led me to the back of the police car. They put me in cheese jail, a place where bad employees are forced to watch crappy reruns of that shitty show they show on the screen. I was allowed to eat pizza dough chunks and baconaise, a form of bacon-flavored mayonnaise. After 8 years, they let me go, but by then it was too late. The Chuck E. Cheese had closed down, replaced by a bowling alley, and all evidence removed. To think that the Cheese Corporation would bind employees to the floor and force-feed them tickets, all so that they could save a few more dollars on their electric bill? Or maybe it's not that at all. Maybe I'm just some crazy guy on the internet, huh? Just some crazy guy making up stories about a pizza restaurant for children. I fucking dare you to open one of those machines right now. They say the Pong creator went nuts in his final years. All those infinite hours of bouncing the ball until he finally lost it. They say he started a pizza chain because he wanted to create the first human AI. That he failed, and the only way he could compromise was by starting a cheese-based religion that required real intelligence, living flesh machines. Just put a man in a rat suit, feed them pizza, some flashing lights, and they'll show up in droves, he said. They'll show up in droves. He was right. Jesus Christ, he was right. Number 4. Big Bang Theory, Unreleased or Lost Episode. Author, unknown. I'm a writer, and in my field I make a few contacts, some of them being fellow writers, directors, etc. I've been close friends with this guy called Chad a while. He was a filmmaker and writer that made a few award-winning shorts and documentaries. We chatted a fair bit, and I remember him being so excited when he told me that he had applied to interview Chuck Lorre as part of the 100th episode of The Big Bang Theory. I was excited too, as I was a fan of the show. I couldn't wait to hear what it was like being on the set and meeting a writing legend. He said he only got to have an interview with Chuck and not the cast, but it's still pretty cool. He said he'd let me know how it went. I knew roughly when he was supposed to have the interview, so sent an email just saying to let me know when he had time to catch up. I got an email back pretty quickly saying, "Get on Instant Messenger now, I have something to tell you." I barely had a chance to open the app before an Instant Messenger message appeared. Chuck Lorre is seriously fucked up. Well, I figured someone that big might have been a dick or something, but I wasn't prepared for what he told me. Chad said how he interviewed Chuck, and it was a normal standard thing until they got to the end of the interview and Chad was just finishing up, and apparently Chuck said, "Hey, you want to see an unreleased episode?" Chad immediately said yes, thinking it was just a new episode not going to be shown for a while. Chuck had a TV and system already set up in his office and popped a DVD in. I wanted to do something a bit out there, go to the darker place rather than some of the goofball stuff we've done. The episode opened with the cast in Sheldon and Leonard's flat with Raj and Howard bickering about something. Seemed fine until Raj said, "If you don't shut your mouth, I'm going to put you in the oven." Chad picked up on that reference immediately. Was that a Holocaust joke? Yeah, why not, was all Chuck replied. Howard retorted by stating he'd make a wave machine to finish off you Browns once and for all. Chad asked why they would make those jokes. The actors just went with it, was all Chuck said. Sheldon then interjected, making comments of his superiority, not only of his intelligence, but being a, quote, white Texan in a nation of gun-toting yeehaws that massacre the Browns and Jews alike. I asked what the reaction from the audience was, and Chad said he didn't hear any laughs, gasp, or anything, so figured there wasn't the usual studio audience there. It then went to the normal credits, although the images were darker. War, explosions, death, dead animals, and ended with the bang being louder, more booming and sinister. Chad watched the episode through, growing more and more uncomfortable. The plot revolved around Penny's brother coming to stay. Apparently they made jokes about the two sleeping together, with Leonard growing more and more annoyed of his inability to be with Penny. He attempts to bond with her brother, who actually makes crystal meth, and tells Leonard, "On this shit, you can do anything." Leonard ends up making his own crystal meth and grows increasingly erratic and disheveled. He gets Howard and Raj to try it, while Sheldon grows more and more withdrawn, not making the cracks or criticisms as he usually does. The climax came when Penny confronts Leonard about his meth usage and is extremely distressed. Leonard seems to have visible marks on his arms and face, and the hand-holding thing he does became way more prominent, twisting and turning over and over again, Leonard goes really quiet before he snaps and calls Penny a whore who opens it up to everyone but me. Howard and Raj aren't saying anything but making noises with the odd giggle and stare at Penny constantly. Leonard rants at Penny before he suddenly grabs her and says I'm gonna take what I want, just like all the other men in your life, and drags her towards the bedrooms. He calls for Raj and Howard to, quote, get in on this, and they followed like dogs. You didn't get to see the bedroom, but hear loud bangs and screams from Penny while Raj and Howard laugh. The camera just focuses on the corridor and goes silent before a heart-wrenching scream. Chad apparently kept changing his gaze from the screen to Chuck to see any reaction, but Chuck remained fixed to the screen. The shot pans to Sheldon on the couch crying and curling up in a fetal position. He wails and jumps at every scream and crash, reverting to how he was when Penny and Leonard was fighting, or when he was acting his childhood dream of being taken to the future by Spock. Eventually the scene ends, and it goes back to black before opening up to the flat, now at night, with the lights off or dimmed. Sheldon remains on the couch in his spot. Penny crawls from the corridor leading to the bedrooms and onto the couch. She was in a horrific state, barely clothed, clearly cried out, and looked broken. She looks to Sheldon, who appears distressed. It appears to have a moment, when suddenly Sheldon's expression changes to that of a false smile. The weird one he does when he was told to be happy for Raj and smile. And he says, Bazinga! And leaps on Penny. The shot lingers on Sheldon removing his clothes as Penny struggles and screams one final time before it finally fades out. At this point, Chuck went back in his chair with a smile on his face. The episode ended with Sheldon, Howard, Raj, and Leonard walking down the street appearing normal. So we've done hard drugs, assault, and rape. What's next before we go back to being nerds? Howard says. They all thought for a minute in their comic thinking pose. Murder, says Sheldon matter-of-factly. They all look and smile at each other. They then pass to Hobo, and once again their looks change to 6 smiles, and they turn back to the Hobo ready to pounce. The credits rolled as normal with no music and cut suddenly. Chad said he couldn't say anything and just stared at Chuck. It'll never go on air, and the cast won't talk about it, so don't even try, Chuck said as he took the DVD out. Chad asked one question. Why? Chuck apparently looked at him really seriously, stared him dead in the eye. When you create something, people, characters, a universe, you touch people. Sometimes when you do that, something touches you back. With that, Chuck had a weird look in his eye. A flash, Chad said, as something he couldn't tell, but it chilled him right to the core. I asked him repeatedly if he was bullshitting me with all this, and he swore on his mother's life it was real. I asked him why the cast would do something like that, and he said he didn't know. I asked him what Chuck meant by being touched, and he said he didn't know, but whatever it was wrong, disturbed, sick, and twisted. As a writer myself, I find it fascinating creating new characters and situations, putting myself and feelings in them. Maybe such creative energies do something. Maybe creating is a force itself, and it opens you to other forces. I don't know, and I don't know if what Chad said was true, but he seemed genuine to me. As for the touching thing, well, as a writer, I guess I'll see it for myself. Number 3. Jeff the Killer learns the true meaning of Christmas. Written by ImGonnaBeThatGuy. It was December 24th in Hollis Ave. In the dark, Jeff the Killer was dressed as Santa Claus. His costume was white, but it got stained red from all the blood. He had a big sack. He put it down and out spilled a bunch of eyeballs that looked like Christmas ornaments.
Some kiddies are gonna get a real surprise on Christmas Day,
he said. Jeff broke into a mansion. He poured the eyeballs on the Christmas tree and snuck up the stairs like some sort of Grinch. He went to my parents' room and said,
Oh, I know who is naughty. Wake up so you can go to sleep so Murder Claus can come and murder you.
My dad tried to grab his machine gun, but he didn't have it because of fucking Obama. Jeff threw a knife at him and it got stuck in his brain. My dad is screaming, my brain! And then he died. My mom is just crying like a dumb whore who don't understand nothing. Jeff punches her in the mouth and then sticks a bunch of needles in her face.
It's the season of giving, and I'm giving you a bunch of needles in your face,
Jeff said. Then he bicycle kicked the needles into her face and they severed a bunch of arteries and she exploded into blood. My sister ran into my parents' room, her dumb titties all over the place, and Jeff says,
What do you want for Christmas?
And my sister says, I don't want to die. And Jeff says,
Well, elves don't make that. It's kind of just a concept. Not really a physical thing that I can give you. I can give you this axe, though.
and he holds up a can of Axe chocolate dragon body spray and sprays it and holds a lighter in front of it, and my sister catches on fire. She ran around screaming and then jumped out of a window. When Jeff came into my room though, I was ready for him. I had on my juggalo makeup, and he thought he was looking into a mirror. It was pretty funny, but also scary and weird. We heard and sound and ran down to the Christmas tree. Jeff screams because he forgot about the eyeballs on the tree, but I just laugh and am brave. We saw Santa coming down the chimney, and Jeff is like,
There's only one room for Santas in this town.
And ran Santa through with my authentic katana sword I bought from that Chinese place at the mall with the incense and posters. I think for a second.
Wait, Jeff, something is wrong.
I shout and run to Santa's corpse. I take off Santa's glasses and windbreaker. It was Jesus.
No, why?
I shout, and Jeff just laughs and says,
Who cares about this guy?
and I said,
It's not a guy, it's the Son of God.
and Jeff says,
Who?
and I cry a single tear because Jeff's soul is in danger.
Jesus Christ, he's like King of Christmas.
I say,
Here, let me show you.
I rub my hands on Jesus and rub my hands on myself to get Jesus magic on me. Then I took Jeff's hand, no homo, and we flew out the window and into the sky.
Jesus was born on Christmas Day in 0 AD.
Brian told Jeff.
Then later, he got crucified on the cross. Why would he do that?
Asks Jeff.
Because when he died, he was like Kirby and sucked up all our sins, even future sins. He's like, look, I'm dying here. And if you love me like I love you, then when you die, you'll go to heaven. That's pretty cool,
Jeff said. We flew through a cloud.
Jesus loves us, and only through him can we get everlasting life in heaven.
Jeff starts crying.
I can't believe I killed such an awesome dude.
Then Jesus pops up and he says, You didn't kill me. That was a test to see if you are truly worthy of kingdom of heaven. Oh, and here's your Christmas present, children. He gives Jeff and Brian boxes and they open them.
Oh man, the new Pokemon game.
I say, then I look closer.
What? Pokemon Black?
Number 2, My Little Pony Goodwill DVD. Written by Nintony Pony 17. I live in the middle of nowhere in the state of Pennsylvania, in a small hick town known as Clearfield. I live in an area deep in the mountains of the town. Most of the kids I go to high school with are rednecks and hillbillies, so many of them would poke fun at me if they knew that I was a brony. I was at the Goodwill store. I'm not living in poverty, I just go to the Goodwill to see if I could get some neat stuff, and was looking through the used DVD collection. I came across a DVD case with no cover. I looked inside and saw there was a DVD labeled My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Princess Twilight Sparkle. I have a bad satellite signal in my place and can't always get the hub or the internet, and would have trouble viewing the season 3 ending any other way without my parents knowing. I mean, they're rather hickish too and wouldn't understand. I handed the DVD to the dimension-ridden lady at the counter and lied that I was buying it for my sister before leaving. On the way home, there was a fierce storm, so I pulled over to figure out where I was, and something caught my eye. It was an illegal machine gun laying in the snow with traces of blood on it. I was gonna call the police, but I had no cell phone signal. Damn Verizon. So I just drove on after the storm calmed down. I got home, the storm suddenly picked up again. I was home alone and free to watch my DVD without any ridicule from my family. I put the DVD on my laptop, and when I finished all the episodes I read were on the DVD, I got a pop-up that said, Flutter.exe requires permission from the administrator to execute. I had no idea what that meant, so I just clicked yes. From here, things started to get rather bizarre. The episode, though it appeared to be animated with the Lauren Faust style, seemed rather off. The first thing shown was Fluttershy sadly staring into a mirror. The scene depicted flashbacks that went so quickly I had to pause and rewind at times. The first was of Twilight Sparkle and Spike participating in a very explicit activity, appearing to be a screenshot of the Rule 34 game Double the Fun. The next flashback was a short clip of Pinkie Pie passed out in her own urine. The next clip was of Rarity laying on a hospital bed while a doctor held a massive something in front of her. I looked close and it was a bloody pony fetus with its head nearly destroyed and bloodied. Did Rarity have a partial birth abortion? The rest of the flashbacks included Applejack physically abusing Apple Bloom, and Rainbow Dash surrounded by dirty meth lab equipment. The flashbacks ended and sinister sounding Criminal Minds music started to play. Fluttershy started to show signs of anger, rage even. Then there was a photo of her in a bulletproof vest. She held a machine gun that looked exactly like the one I saw earlier. She also had numerous magazines, knives, and handguns strapped around her. I was getting very concerned at this point. I mean, why would Lauren Faust show such demented imagery and violent objects on a kid's show? The next photo was of Fluttershy wearing a t-shirt with the words "Natural Selection" written on it. Natural selection? The first thing I thought of was the Columbine shooting. After 10 seconds of the photo, Fluttershy was shown leaving her house at night with her vest, t-shirt, gun, and other weapons. It zoomed into the floor where one could see her rabbit, Angel, lying on the floor, gored and bloodied. It was detailed, but still in the Lauren Faust style. I feared what would happen next. It then cut to the theme song of the show. It seemed rather normal, but something was off. The color was duller than usual, and the music seemed uneasily flat. At the part where it says "Developed for Television" by Lauren Faust, it instead read "Developed for Television" by Sung Hee Cho, in the typical font usually used. The Sung Hee Cho? The Virginia Tech shooter? I knew what would be coming up, and it could not be good. It cut to the next scene. It showed the Ponyville schoolhouse and students entering the building. It seemed rather peaceful, until the title of the episode came up. Flutter Lanza. Flutter Lanza? As in Adam Lanza? Is this some kind of sick joke? I got a sick feeling in my stomach, and I got a good idea what I was in for. I surely started up class with the doorknob closed when there was a knock. Shirley walked up to the door.
Who's there? Do I have a late student?
Shirley asked.
It's Fluttershy.
Stated the respective timid voice.
Could I come in real quick?
I kept telling Shirley in my mind, "Don't open the door! Run for your life!" However, she tragically opened the door. As soon as she let Flutter in, she started firing, killing Shirley first. She waved her machine gun around, not aiming at any pony, but just waving like a madmare. There was blood and bodies everywhere, except for the cutie marked Crusaders, whose hoofs Fluttershy saw under the teacher's desk from the little slit at the bottom. It cut to the little shits, hiding for fear of their lives. They wouldn't make it. Fluttershy threw a grenade under the desk and it destroyed the desk and mutilated the CMC, rather graphically. The sound of the bodies crunching and splatting was horribly gruesome. I was grossed out, but I did not vomit, since I am used to seeing that kind of stuff. I hunt during deer season and I saw many war movies. I was still appalled that this was even animated. It looked disturbingly like Faust's style. The scene suddenly cut to Rainbow Dash heading to visit Applejack. What she saw struck us both with terror. Inside the barn, both Big Macintosh and Granny Smith laid gored and dead in a pool of blood. But what was really disturbing was the body of Applejack. All her organs were pulled out and the words "child abuser" was carved into her back. Rainbow Dash expressed sorrow for her fallen friend, but was caught by fear for her own life. Was she next? From the shadows, Fluttershy entered and Rainbow trembled in fear. In a voice different than her own, a disturbing teenage male voice, Fluttershy asked, "Do you believe in God?" I remembered that this quote was associated with the Columbine shooters. In a voice uncharacteristic of Rainbow Dash, resembling that more of a timid teenage girl, she answered, "Yes." Fluttershy screamed in the deep male voice, "Then go be with him!" She put up her gun to Rainbow Dash's forehead and pulled the trigger. Rainbow Dash was dead and her head destroyed. Fluttershy carved into Rainbow Dash's flank. Crack whore. It almost made me throw up, but I kept it down.
That'll teach that bitch.
Fluttershy spoke in her normal voice. The screen went black. I figured that this would be where a commercial would normally air if this sick episode was actually to be released. I thought to myself, why would Faust write this? Especially after the recent chain of school shootings. This couldn't be her, could it? The next scene was of the Sugar Cube corner. Oh no. Would Fluttershy really kill off the cakes? I shuddered, but I knew I had to keep watching. Mrs. Cake went to check upon her twins in the nursery room. When Mrs. Cake entered the room, the scene cut to Mr. Cake sitting in the kitchen drinking his morning beverage. His drinking was interrupted by a blood-curdling, sorrowful scream. I feared what might happen next. Mr. Cake ran to the nursery and saw a horrible sight. Mrs. Cake emitted a cry of sorrow. To her horror, lying in front of her were the twins, dead, tinged with a sickening shade of blue. Both of the cakes started crying in sorrow. I would think Lauren Faust would be sensitive to the fact that some viewers have lost infant siblings to sudden infant death syndrome. Am I wrong? Or is that not Lauren Faust, but rather some sick copycat? If that was not sick enough, the next sight would truly sicken almost anyone. Pinkie Pie walked into the doorway. She was limping and clearly unstable. She stared at the cakes, then uttered sickly,
"It wasn't sudden infant death syndrome."
Pinkie then collapsed in the doorway and started seizing and bleeding out of her orifices on the floor. The cakes ran for her attention, but they were too late. She stopped breathing, and her heart stopped. She was dead. As the cakes mourned for her too, the camera zoomed into the dead twins, and you could see some slight bruising around their snouts. Now I am no expert, but I believe that something like this could be a sign they were smothered. Fluttershy popped out of the closet.
What fun is life without a little death?
I recognized that quote from the journal of Dylan Klebold, one of the Columbine shooters. Fluttershy started shooting at the cakes. It was really brutal. Blood and gore flew all over the room as the cakes perished. They were finally dead after taking about 100 rounds. After everyone else in the room was dead, Fluttershy walked towards the body of Pinkie Pie. She grabbed her knife and carved into her. Drunkard. After all that death, I know she would go after the rest of the main 6. This left Rarity and Twilight Sparkle, along with whoever else would get in the way. The screen faded to a bridge in the ever-free forest. I paused the episode to see the corpse of Zekara, hanging from a tree. She was lynched in a style similar to those done by the Ku Klux Klan. What sick bastard got the idea to write this distortion of a children's cartoon? I continued playing, and Fluttershy was rolling a chair with cement blocks strapped to it. Who else was tied to it besides Rarity? I got a deep pit of sickness in my stomach. I knew what Fluttershy would do now. This time, Rarity was still alive, but already had the carvings on her flank. Philly killer. She was clearly distressed and tried screaming, but she was gagged so no sound could come out.
The lonely mare strikes with absolute rage.
Fluttershy pushed Rarity into the river as she attempted to scream. Fluttershy then walked towards the corpse of Zekara. You nagger. It was not her normal voice, or the evil teen male voice from earlier, but rather that of a southern middle-aged man. I recognized the voice as Bob Elwell from the 1962 film To Kill a Mockingbird. So Fluttershy is a murderer and racist now? Who made this sick film? The show cut to Twilight Sparkle's house. Some sinister-sounding music started to play. The camera zoomed into the window and then jumped to Twilight Sparkle's bed. She and Spike were screwing each other. Both were moaning and screaming, and the sinister music was getting louder and more suspenseful. I knew something horrible would happen soon. Spike ended up laying on the bed. Twilight climbed on top of him and started to defecate on his chest. Oh my lord! She was performing a Cleveland steamer! I just about threw up. I know if my parents were to walk in here, they would kill me. So ashamed at what I had watched, I could not take it anymore. I pressed the eject button, but my disk drive wouldn't open. The video just kept playing.
How about I give you a Cosby sweater?
Twilight asked. Holy shit. This had gone from some twisted horror film to a horribly made shock porno. Twilight made herself vomit on Spike's chest, and it was clear she had eaten a bunch of fruity cereal. I came even closer to throwing up. I had seen some nasty shit before. My friends got me to look up shit like 2 Girls 1 Cup and Lemon Party and Goatsy and even 3 Guys 1 Hammer. But this was more sickening than anything that they had shown me. The music was building up. I was actually looking forward to seeing the 2 of them die. I hated Twilight Sparkle now. I wanted that whore to die. The scene changed to a hunting scope. It was looking through the window and was clearly aiming for Spike. When the shooter got a lock on Spike, they pulled the trigger. The shooter took off the scope when the camera changed to reveal it was Fluttershy. She grinned an evil, smiley grin.
1 down, 1 to go.
The scene went back to Twilight's bed. Blood and brain were splattered all over the wall and Twilight. She stood in shock and just stared in horror as she watched Spike bleed. Fluttershy walked into Twilight's house.
Fluttershy! Someone just killed Spike! Get help!
Fluttershy walked toward the bed and pulled out a knife.
Fluttershy? What are you doing?
Twilight asked as she backed towards the wall. At the climax of the music, Fluttershy started stabbing the daylights out of Twilight Sparkle. Twilight screamed bloody murder, but Flutter just hacked until Twilight's lungs filled with blood. She stopped breathing and died, but Fluttershy just kept stabbing. I counted up to 250 times before she stopped stabbing. I have a very good sense of numbers and was able to remember each stab even when I was paying attention to the blood and gore. Fluttershy calmed herself down. She took the knife and started carving into Twilight's thigh. Pedo whore. I then saw Fluttershy stick her hoof in the blood and smeared a smiley face on the wall. It was an exact match to the insignia of Red John from The Mentalist. I wanted to see Twilight dead, but not like this. I came to the conclusion that this was not Lauren Faust who made this. I figured out that it was just some deranged psychopath who would learn to animate good. I was now worried for her. Was he stalking her? Could we lose an animation genius? The screen faded to black. I knew this was not a real episode. It had already run for 35 minutes. When it faded to black, the scene was of the Crystal Empire. The camera changed to a theater. Princess Candace and Prince Shining Armor were on the top balcony. They were chatting and viewing the performance of Handel's Messiah. They seemed to enjoy it. Then Fluttershy jumped out from behind the curtain and just started shooting like at the schoolhouse. She shot at everyone, killing everyone in sight, including the prince and princess. She would not kill everyone though, like at the schoolhouse. A group of police officers ran up from behind her and tackled her and arrested her for numerous counts of murder. She put up little fight as they carried her away, but rather, she gave an extremely evil grin. She had over 250 kills on her whole rampage, over 230 of them being from the theater. The screen then faded to black. But it wasn't over. The screen faded back, and she was now in court for sentencing and final comments. The first pony to go up on the podium was Princess Luna.
Fluttershy, why?
Luna asked on the stand.
I have no idea what would motivate you to do something like this. It just seems so out of character for you.
She started to cry.
I bet you were abused by your family, perhaps molested by your father. The ones you used to call friends turned on you. I was appalled when I learned what Twilight Sparkle did to Spike these past few years, taking advantage of a child. I was astonished that Apple Bloom never managed to report the abuse she faced. Oh, why did you murder the victims of these monsters with them? Why?
Her sobbing started to get out of control, but she gained her composure.
Perhaps a lifetime in prison will help you get rid of the hate in your heart.
Princess Luna left the stand. Now it was Fluttershy's turn to speak her last lines.
To my victims, the hoof that pulled the trigger that killed your families now clops to their memory. Fuck all of you!
She said in another voice, resembling that of another male teenager. I recognized that quote from the news. It was the sentencing for TJ Lane, the perpetrator of the Chardon High School shooting. He said almost the exact same thing, except Fluttershy's speech was ponified. It couldn't get any worse, I thought. That was until Fluttershy pulled out a handgun from her pocket and shot herself, and blood poured from her mouth in a manner similar to that of the infamous Bud Dwyer suicide. Random bursts of static overtook the screen as she bled out. After flickering on and off for a while, the screen was overtook by it. It stopped suddenly and I saw the most disturbing image in my lifetime. It was a picture of Fluttershy bleeding out, but her eyes were missing and her sockets were left to bleed. That image literally made me wet myself. I kept watching, and the image flashed over and over again in different colors while at the same time, loud blood-curdling screams filled the room. It didn't even sound like it was coming from my computer, but rather from all around the room. I fell over and from there on, everything went black. I woke up 3 hours later in the emergency room at Clearfield Hospital. My parents had found me passed out in my room. My parents told me that I had a stress seizure, apparently triggered by some sort of psychological trauma. My parents embraced me, glad that I was safe. The doctors recommended that I be kept home from school the next day. This would end up saving my life. My parents got a call the next day from my high school. There had been a school shooting that left 3 students dead, including the shooter who killed herself. I knew the shooter. She was this blonde who never talked with anyone and just blended in most of the time. I never knew she had it in her to kill people. The news reporter stated that she had been assaulted by a couple of male students about a year ago and finally decided to take her revenge on the guys. The news also reported a pending investigation into her family's life, with recent allegations by her older sister that her father had sexually abused her since kindergarten. A press conference was held where it was said that the shooter wore a bulletproof vest and carried many knives, handguns, and a machine gun. It was also found that she was carrying a small plastic figure of Fluttershy. When they searched her house, they had found disturbing MLP fan animations that were very accurate to the Lauren Faust style. Nobody in our school knew how disturbed she really was. Nobody knew that she would be the next school shooter. I now wonder, did she make that film I saw? I wonder if she made that film and intentionally put it at the Goodwill store in town, so a local would see it and hear her cries for help. Could she have been asking for help, or was it something more sinister? I have since burned the DVD. I did not want to victimize myself even more than I already had by sending it to the police. I never told my parents about that DVD, and they still did not know about my MLP addiction. Perhaps someday I will tell them about being a brony, maybe even the whole school, but for now, I should put the past behind me. Number 1. Pokémon.exe. Author unknown.
Hey guys, did you know that in terms of male human and female Pokemon breeding, Vaporeon is the most compatible Pokemon for humans? Not only are they in the field egg group, which is mostly comprised of mammals, but Vaporeon are an average of 3 feet 3 inches tall and 63.9 pounds. This means they're large enough to be able to handle human dicks, and with their impressive base stats for HP and access to acid armor, you can really be rough with one. Due to their mostly water-based biology as well, there's no doubt in my mind that an aroused Vaporeon would be incredibly wet. So wet that you could easily have sex with one for hours without getting sore. They can also learn the moves Attract, Baby Doll Eyes, Captivate, Charm, and Tail Whip, along with not having fur to hide nipples, so it'd be incredibly easy for one to get you in the mood. With their abilities of water absorb and hydration, they could easily recover from fatigue with enough water. No other Pokemon comes close to this level of compatibility.
Also, fun fact, if you pull out enough, you can make your Vaporeon turn white. Vaporeon is literally built for human dick. Ungodly defense stat plus high HP pool plus acid armor means it can take cock all day, all shapes and sizes, and still come for more. I sincerely believe this last story, my dear viewer, to be the scariest thing ever written in the history of mankind. Hey guys, it's Bleach again. I just wanted to say thank you if you made it all the way through the end of my video. I had to sit through a lot of great, and I mean truly great stories in order to put it together, so it really means a lot to me. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it in the future, make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on. Cheers guys.